What is up, heroes? Jake Parker here, and it is time for another complete guide on the new hero Venture, the new DPS hero that will be releasing alongside Season 10 in Overwatch 2. I'm going to go over every single ability, every attack, important stats, and massive tips to know that will help you learn and master Venture prior to Season 10's launch in April 2024. If you like this video and look forward to more Overwatch and gaming content, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications to know when my next video will be live. Venture is the brand new DPS hero that is unlike anything we have ever seen in Overwatch history and an absolute game changer to any team composition in the game. Unlike every other hero that takes their advantage to the skies or on the ground, Venture breaks the mold by being the only hero that can play, position, and attack from the underground with incredibly powerful attacks and speed. Venture can close gaps quickly, apply incredible damage to multiple enemies with ease, and yet still be flexible enough to escape bad situations on their own. With the traditional 250 base health, but a unique passive ability called Explorer's Resolve that sees Venture granted temporary shields for either of the two abilities they have, Venture is meant to be a complete powerhouse that leaves enemies looking behind their shoulder and questioning every move they make. Venture's kit is easily one of the most unique in the game, and every attack or ability is meant to lead to the next, where lethal damage can be applied in an extremely short amount of time. If you're a player who loves bringing the fight to the enemy in face-to-face fashion, Venture is likely going to be a hero that ends up on your permanent roster. Venture's primary attack is the Smart Excavator, a short-range projectile attack that sees Venture firing a seismic charge from the drill, traveling forward with minimal fall-off and bursting at the end with AoE damage splashing. Direct hits on an enemy will see far much more damage than the AoE burst, but it has a very minimal range of just under 20 meters, meaning you'll have to play very close to enemy lines in order to be most effective. Smart Excavator currently has a max of 8 ammo, taking approximately 5 seconds to deplete if rapid fired, and roughly about 1.75 seconds to reload before being able to fire again. A major point to note is that because of the AoE burst at the end of the attack, Smart Excavator does not deal critical damage at all. At its current strength, Smart Excavator can 3-tap DPS and support heroes with ease and puts massive damage into enemy shields very quickly. Just like every other projectile attack from other heroes, Smart Excavator can be blocked by certain abilities such as Barriers, Defense Matrix, and Reflect, but it can also be damage boosted by Antidarts and of course the Amplification Matrix. A few tips for Venture's primary attack that will greatly help your gameplay is to aim for body shots as much as possible, as this is where the majority of damage is going to come from. Keep in mind that as a projectile, be sure to aim in front of their movement rather than directly on them so enemies receive direct impact. In addition, if you do notice enemies hiding behind walls or turning corners, aim for the ground by the corner and use the AoE splash damage to apply damage to them and force them out of their position. Venture's first ability is the Burrow, which is arguably the most unique ability ever implemented in Overwatch 2 to date. When activated, Burrow sees Venture dive into the ground and travel around the map for a few seconds before breaching out and applying damage to enemies within the area of effect, as well as providing knockback. While in the Burrow state, Venture is also completely invulnerable to enemy attacks, meaning Burrow can be used both offensively to apply quick aggressive damage to multiple enemies, or defensively to escape a bad situation and reposition yourself around the map. As far as stats go, Burrow can travel around 35 meters and carries roughly a 0.75 second delay on activation before becoming invulnerable, meaning you are still susceptible to damage for that brief amount of time. When underground, a 4-second timer appears on the screen before forcing Venture back out in the open. However, you can also cancel the ability early at any time if you need to. Once Burrow is finished, Venture has an 8-second cooldown before Burrow can be used again. A few massive tips to keep in mind is that Burrow is also a charge-up ability, meaning that once the timer's finished, you can hold the ability or jump button just before breaching in order to charge it up, causing the area of effect to increase. Once it's fully charged, breaching will see the area of effect at max range, deal even more damage, and increase Venture's speed coming out of the ground. Another tip is that Burrow can also be paired with Venture's second ability, Drill Dash, which will give Venture a brief but very noticeable burst of speed while still underground, which is massive for getting into position quickly, but also keep in mind this does affect the Drill Dash's cooldown, which we will discuss next. As far as status effects go, using Burrow successfully will see Venture remove most negative status effects, which is amazing for recovery. But also keep in mind this is a double-edged sword because while you're underground, Venture also can't be targeted directly by ally healers or be provided healing until Burrow's complete and Venture is back out in the open. Burrow can be used on aerial flat surfaces and allow Venture to drop down ledges back into the Burrow state while the timer is still active. But for some reason, you can only go up ramps and not down? I'm not sure why this is the case, but I will report back to you guys if this changes at any time. And lastly, a massive rule to keep in mind for Burrow is it doesn't allow you to go underneath walls or other ground-attached items or terrain. Basically, an easy rule to follow here is on the ground, go around. Venture's second ability is the Drill Dash, an extremely powerful direct attack that sees Venture dash forward with their drill in front, dealing incredible damage to and providing knockback on non-fortified enemies. Drill Dash leaps Venture just over 10 meters ahead for roughly about half a second and has an 8-second cooldown before being able to activate again. It's an extremely simple ability to learn and implement, but it can also be used offensively to apply damage and knockback, while also defensively to quickly dash out of a bad engagement. Some important tips to consider for Drill Dash is that it can also be a multi-enemy attack, meaning that all non-fortified enemies within the line of attack will all receive damage and knockback, which can be greatly beneficial to opening up opportunities for your team. Another tip is that Drill Dash really is a fantastic movement ability for closing distances between flying enemies like Pharah, Echo, or Mercy, allows you to reach higher ledges, drop down quickly, or simply dash away from enemy engagements. And as mentioned earlier, Drill Dash could also be paired with Venture's Burrow ability to provide a super quick burst of speed while underground. When activated, the cooldown for Drill Dash reduces from 8 seconds to 4, meaning that Drill Dash will become available immediately after breaching the ground or just slightly after. And lastly, a crucial piece of information to keep in mind is that the Drill Dash does not allow you to turn in the air while active, meaning direction really matters when you activate it. Be sure to look in the exact direction you aim to go before you use it, otherwise you may end up somewhere you don't intend to be. And last but certainly not least is Venture's ultimate ability, the Tectonic Shock. A massive weapon fire that sees Venture's drill replacing their primary attack and releasing up to 4 shockwaves across the ground to deal massive damage to enemies while also providing knockback. When activated, Tectonic Shock has an 8-second timer to use all 4 shockwaves, and there's a 1-second delay between each one. While the ultimate is active, Venture can still use Burrow and Drill Dash to change up how they use their ultimate against the enemy team. Some tips to consider for Tectonic Shock is that although, yeah, you can still use Burrow while the ultimate is active, you can't fire a shockwave while underground. In addition, Venture's melee is also disabled until the ultimate timer runs out. And lastly, Tectonic Shock cannot go up or down direct ledges, but they can go up or down ramps, such as stairs. Now, in order to help maximize your Venture gameplay, here's a few great things to keep in mind as you look to master how you play. The first tip is what I like to call the BDM, or the Burrow Drill in Melee. This is the exact in-order combination of sequential attacks that sees maximum damage output possible, which will eliminate any DPS or support while also near eliminating any enemy tank. This is an extremely aggressive combination when paired with the remainder of your team. However, this is also a very major risk-reward attack, as this combination will also immediately leave you in ability cooldowns and opens you up to counterattack. If you intend on using BDM at any time, be prepared to have a fallback with either a Lifeweaver Grip or a Kiriko Suzu to keep you alive or get away from a bad situation. Speaking of melee, Venture's Clobber Melee is extremely powerful to provide lots of damage very quickly, but it also burdens you with an almost 2-second delay before being able to melee again. During this time, this could open you up to an attack if you don't have another ability to counter the delay or you're already in cooldowns. Be sure to remember when to use your melee sparingly and in the right moments so you don't end up locked in a bad situation. Next, be aware of your cooldowns. Knowing that all of Venture's cooldowns are 8 seconds, this is a great thing to remember as you work to determine how to work the kit best with your playstyle, whether it be offensive play, quick escapes, or a balance in between. Alternatively, consider making Drill Dash a secondary movement mechanic over an actual attack, at least for the current moment. Any great player will know when to disengage from a potentially deadly fight, and Drill Dash will allow you to quickly blast away from enemies to reposition if you need to. And lastly, as a recommendation, consider positioning Venture in front of enemies rather than attempt to flank. Staying in front of enemies with your team means having the support and heals of your team when needed while engaging. Although attempting to flank enemies from behind could be a potential strength with how powerful Venture could be, this also would likely require you to use Venture's Burrow ability to travel behind, which would then leave you in cooldown and separated from your team entirely. It's ultimately up to you to communicate with your team and know which position will work best for you. And that's it, y'all. A complete hero's guide to the new DPS hero Venture in Overwatch 2. I personally have fallen in love with this character as it matches exactly the kind of playstyle I'm looking for, and I cannot wait for Season 10's release. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoy this guide and look forward to more Overwatch and gaming content, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications to know when my next video will be live. Thank you for being the reason I get to do what I do, and until the next video, heroes, game on.